Hello friends, in last video we have seen what is JSON builder and how can we use JSON builder to manipulate different JSON payload in a Groovy. We learned how to create a JSON using a JSON builder, how to add new keys to the existing JSON, how to update the value of an existing key of a JSON in a Groovy, and how to delete particular key value from a JSON in a Groovy. So those things that we have seen in the JSON builder. In today's video, we gonna see how we can create nested JSON object in a Groovy. So many times there would be a requirement where you need to send a nested JSON. What does that nested JSON means? So let me take an example of a nested JSON. So if you go to some site like JSON path, you would see, so this is the site JSON path where you would see these phone numbers. There are multiple objects of a JSON inside the JSON, and even this address it's another JSON object in this particular parent JSON object. If we are calling the JSON as a person object, in this person JSON object there is an address JSON and then there is an array of phone number JSON. So this is what the nested JSON looks like. So many times in API testing we have a requirement where we need to create this payload on the fly. So in today's video we will see how can we create this kind of a payload on the fly. So let's take very simple example like this, and we will also try to create a person payload on the fly. So let me open my Groovy editor and okay, so let me escape from my, and here is my Groovy editor. Okay, so first thing first, as we did in the last video, we will import the required package, and as we have discussed in the last two videos, all the JSON related classes in Groovy are in groovy.json package. So in for this particular video we gonna use JSON builder, and there is another one JSON slurper on which we have did the first video. You can take a look at that as well. But in this video we're gonna just focus on JSON builder to create this nested JSON. Okay, so I have imported the required dependency, and as we have seen, where is that particular payload? Okay, so this is the payload that we were talking about. Let me copy it, and we will try to not that complex because it will take much of a time. We will create very simple of something. We wanted to create a person kind of a thing, so let's say that we don't need a person and we are creating something similar like this, right? So we have to create this kind of an object where is another JSON is nested in this parent JSON, right? How can you create the similar JSON in the Groovy using a JSON builder? So I'm committing this out. So we have to create a two object. One is in person, which is like this JSON, and in that JSON there would be composition. There would be another object who does act as an address, right? So let me define first address as an object. Why address as an object we need to define first? We will discuss that in minute when we try to compile our code. So address, and okay, what we have three attributes for this particular JSON. Total four attribute, three attribute for this. So let me put it like very simply. We have string. Let's call it street. Then we have city. Okay, and we have integer postal code. Let me call it zip for ease. And because we need to call this object, we need to have a constructor. So constructor is nothing but a public method with same class without any return type. So, and because we have three attributes, we will define three parameters to this constructor. First would be street, then there is city, and then there is zip. Okay, and so we have created one object zip, and now we have to, whatever value that we are getting, we need to bind that Oh, I have missed R, so let me fix the typo. Street, so this dot city equals to whatever value that we will pass from constructor, and div dot zip equals to zip. Okay, so we have created this blueprint of this address JSON object into the simple Groovy class, which is very similar to what Java class look likes. Let me create another object called class person. So class person, in class person we have 4 attributes. 2 are string, first name, last name, one is integer, and then address is an object that we have defined here, right? So let me do that and type it out, and then we will discuss why we need to define the address as in first before we write in person thing. Street, first name, string, last name, and integer, age. Okay, and then address, right? And just like we have created constructor for address, we have to create a constructor for this class, right? So public person, and we need to define string. Let me make it short so that it would be easy to type. And name, then integer, age, and then address. Okay, so I'll just assign the value over whatever that we are passing through as a constructor parameter to our class attribute. First name, which is f name, then this dot last name, l name. We don't get any intelligent support in Groovy console that we are using here. If you use IntelliJ or some other ID, you might get type ahead support, where you will get out of the box support for writing this method, and you can even create the constructor on the fly. I have used this because this is very lightweight. It don't consume that much of memory, and if you have Java installed, it just installing one package and you are good to go. So we initialize this. So if I run this, you will get an error saying that there is no runner or main method that initializing this class. So you have basically added a class, but you are not using it, and to use the class you need to have like a main method or JUnit or something like that has been told. It's because this class is getting compiled as a script and you are not using those in anywhere, so there is nothing to print for this execution. But if I create a class called as an address, so let me create an object open home address, then how would it look like? New and 3 parameter, right? So street name, let me give MG road, then city, let me give it Pune, and pin code, let me give something like 007. Okay, and if I run this now, it should run for at least, you can see the error has gone, because we are basically essentially using the object that we are creating into the script. So there is no more error that you would see here, right? So we have initialized this home address. Similarly, we will create a person object, right? So just like in Java, person, let me call it as a John, give the name of a person, new person. So person has first name, let's call it John. It has a person has a last name, so John Doe, last name. It has age, let's say 25, and address, let's say we are providing a home address that we have created earlier, right? So you would see that okay, something is wrong. Home address, it's giving me error at line number 2139. 2139, zip integer city. Okay, integer this, int age. Okay, not sure why it's giving me an error. Okay, let me take a look properly. John Doe, first name, last name, string, first name, last name, integer age, and home address. Right? Okay, if I don't commit this and I try to run this, let me check, is the error in my last line. Okay, so basically how I'm initializing this particular line is throwing me the error. So I'm trying to create this person class. Method is public person string f name. Okay, string last name, integer age, and home address. Right, let me check whether I have made any. Okay, it looked like I have a typo in this home address. Okay, yes, there was a typo in home address. I have fixed it. Now you can see that I was able to create a person object, right? So why we have defined address before the class? As I said before, right, this is a script where whatever attributes or methods or objects you use has to be defined before you use it. So if I write address class first and I write if I write person class first and write an address class later, you would see if I try to compile this, it will, oh, it's still working out, but I am not sure how it is working out. If I comment this out, I might get some error, or if I do this, it will, okay. Okay, so the sequence of a class won't matter for you, but how are you using those when they initializing the object, right? So I don't have value of this home address, and I'm trying to create a person object. So I always need to create an address first and then pass it as a parameter. Or if not, what I can do, if I don't have like any object, I'll get an error if I try to create an object on the fly here without any parameter. But obviously if I give parameter, it would work, right? So if I pass this essentially here, it would work, right? So let me delete this, and then you have this person object that we are talking about. So basically we have created this person object, but how does this person object does look like, right? So you wanted to see this person object would look like, whether it's in JSON or not. So let me clean up the log. Let me use our JSON builder. So let me define JSON person. Okay, this person, and then we will use JSON builder, the class that we have seen in the last video, and then I'll pass John as a parameter, and we will print this uh, John person. Okay, John person, we will print this. It will get print. Okay, you can see that it is getting print. Let me print as a pretty string, the method that we have seen in the last video, and I think it should look very okay, just like what we have thought. We would have first name, last name, age, and address. You have first name, last name, age, which is an integer, and address, right? Okay, so why we should create this blueprint classes when we wanted to create an uh, this this kind of a JSON, nested JSON, right? So suppose right now you are on e-commerce site where you are creating a person, and person may have like multiple addresses. Now its home address, its office address, and if you want to use that, how would you do that, right? So suppose we wanted to create a JSON file where you can send an array of an address, right? How hard it would be, to manipulate or change the JSON. If you create this kind of an structure, it would be very easy to create that, right? It would look like uh, you basically would have like this kind of a JSON structure, and then there would be close open array. So this is how your JSON would look like if you have multiple address associated with person JSON. So let's try to create this kind of a structure in our embedded nested JSON that we have already created. So we have to have like an address of an array. I'm keeping it here so that we can verify afterwards, and we want it to the person. So let me call address as an array, and now because we are providing address, we can't just take this address here. We have to add that address to this array, right? So we also need to figure it out how we will add address to array, right? And basically we can expect an array here, right? A person can have an either single or double, right? Multiple. Even if he wants, we can create a 3 address for one person, so it can accept an array of addresses, right? So multiple addresses can be accepted now. So now we have like these addresses. So we earlier created one address. So let me create another object. So this was one object. Let me call. Okay, we have to create two objects at once, and we need to pass them, right? So how can we do that? Address, right? The class this, and then we can call it as a home address. And if you're Sherlock Holmes, let's define another object as an office address, and assuming, giving some fictitious Baker Street in London, and I don't know what would be the zip code. Let me give it 221. It would be number, so I need to pass it as a number. So I have now two addresses, and I can create an array, and I can pass that array, right? So basically I'll create an array now. Def address array, and I can just call it out as an very simply, right? I can just create an array and add this to particular object that we have created, and as you can see, we have now array, and we can just pass this to our person. Add array. Now this person John would have like multiple addresses that we are defining here. Let's try to see whether this code works or not. Okay, we are getting some error at line over unexpected input, line number 17.5. Okay, where I am. Okay, the code I have not commented, the array code that I have added afterwards. So okay, the exception throw could not find matching constructor for array list at this. Okay, we are getting matching constructor error. We are expecting address, and we are creating, okay, we are not defining it as an address, right? We are just defining this. So let me create as an address of an array object, so that we have strictly coupled. Okay, just like what we wanted, right? So this is an person John JSON object which has first name, last name, age, and you can see this multiple JSON objects is there, right? So we are able to create a nested JSONs into the JSON. And the funny thing and good thing about creating this blueprint of the object required, suppose you wanted to create a bulk data and you wanted to create like a 10 different person, how easy it would be once you create this payload, right? So let me walk you through this code first, and then we can try to see how can we create multiple instances of a person with very much ease, right? So first I am creating a class person after importing the JSON builder, whatever the attribute that we will required, and then we will write a constructor to accept that attribute, right? And similarly, if we can not just define the primary type strings, integers, but we can also add this complex object like an address, which we have done over here, right? But we need to define this address as well and create a constructor for as well, and before we pass it off, we need to create an array or what kind of an parameter constructor expect we need to create that and pass it off when we create this person object, right? And then we can just use a JSON builder to convert this our complex object to the required JSON, the nested JSON that we want, and we can use the pretty string to print it like this, right? Suppose you have to create now 2 persons or 3 persons, right? And whatever things that I have written here, you can just write a random name. So suppose you want a distinct table name every time, right? You don't want it in any hard code, right? So you can easily write a logic to create a new random name, new random age, so that you can create a different name. You don't have to have like a same kind of an entities. You can do that very easily. And even address, right? You can create a random string and append that. You can, if you don't want any constructor, you can just initialize with those values right away with random function in the Groovy. You can create this, so you won't even need to pass these parameters. You can create just random string, random first name, random last name, and that would be it. But if you need to create a multiple person, you can just use a for loop, right? The very similar way that you would use in a Java, right? So we need a person JSON now. Earlier we had like an uh, the person that we call John person, but we need a persons list, right? So let me create another like another array which will hold multiple persons in JSON format. Like we have John Doe, and we can have like a multiple. And let's say for example, let's say we want to like have two two such persons. So how we will go about it? Integer 0, starting from 0. So we have want to have less than, we want just 2, so let's make it less than 3, and I plus plus. So that is how would our for loop would look like. And what we have to do, we can just create these objects in the loop, right? So we are creating John person as in the loop. And if you want, what we can do, we can just append, we can make the age different, right? How can we can make age different? We can just append I. So at least these two object would have like an uh, age and pin code. We can make it different, because we have an I which is an integer. We can just add it to the counter, so that we would have like a different I every time. So now we are creating this person JSON, right? And we can just add this person JSON. So we need to build this JSON object first. And once we build this JSON object, okay, we have built this JSON object, and now we can just add it to this array that we have created. Let me put JSON dot add to this array. We don't need this won't work because John person doesn't exist over there. We need to add this John person, which we are defining every time. And now what we have, we can just because John person, we have this. Let's try to see whether it runs or giving us any error. So it's not giving any error, so it means it is running in some way. So let me, okay, I'm just printing out here. I can try to print it out in the pretty string, because it's an array open JSON. So let me try. If I pretty string, if I put in like this, let me see. Okay, missing method, no method, to pretty string. Okay, for an array it won't work. So I don't want it to spend time to figuring out that, because anyway how you spend the JSON data, it won't gonna affect it. But if you want to see, I can open the notepad++ and show overview. So I'll copy this information that I have, and I'll put it over here in my notepad, and I'll just format it out. I have plugin JSON format, and you could see that three JSONs. Okay, because we have added 0 1 2, right? Okay, it's basically we are getting three JSONs, because index start from 0 1 2. We are getting three JSONs. And as you can see, we have three object like with the same name, but you would see that age is different. Basically we are adding it, and pin code is different. So if you want like a multiple objects and create an embedded array, it would be very easy if you create a blueprint of an object like this using classes in Groovy. So that's pretty much it. That is how you can create nested JSONs into the Groovy. I hope this would help you out. Please let me know if you're you need any help with this. Thank you.